pressure, hitting something hurts.
4 packs a day between the two of us.
Half of all Americans die of heart disease.
You look much skinnier.
It's a very simple machine per se. In the same time, it's extremely complex.
Every good heartbeat
allows us to live not just longer, but with a better quality of life.
The human heart, roughly the size of your fist, it weighs little more than a pound. But in the course of an average lifetime, it will beat 3 million times, pumping over 2,000 gallons of blood a day, supplying the nourishment needed by every cell in our bodies. Whether we call it liqueur, El Corazon, kelp, or sheen, its symbolism is the same to every culture on Earth. The seat of our soul, the source of our emotions, a powerful shorthand for who we are, our heart. So central is the heart to our existence that long before we can feel pain or process a thought, long before the sound that all parents-to-be long to hear is audible, our cardiovascular system is up and running. A mere 3 weeks into pregnancy, a rudimentary fetal heart is already beating. But at this point, it's just a simple tube that must fuse together and fold over on itself, transforming into the architecture of the 4-chambered heart. By week 8, it's fully functional, pumping away at a rate exactly twice that of its mother. As the thousands of miles of veins and arteries spread through the developing body, only one element differentiates the fetal cardiovascular system from that of an adult. It's still dependent on the mother for its oxygen, which it receives through the placenta. And so the moment of birth, as the newborn takes its first breaths, is truly the first time our cardiovascular system is put to the test.
The heart likes to work in a very, very defined set of parameters, and when it works within that set of parameters, it does very, very well. It basically will take blood from the body, deliver it to the lungs, then take it from the lungs, picking up the oxygen and deliver it to the body. So it's a very simple machine per se. In the same time, it's extremely complex.
The 4 chambers of the heart each serve a distinct purpose. Blood enters the right atrium, a holding area where it moves slowly into the right ventricle, a pumping chamber which sends the blood to the lungs. The same process is repeated on the left side, with one key difference. The left ventricle sends the oxygenated blood, 2,000 gallons of it every day, pumping out to every inch of your body.
The heart is a miraculous structure, and most folks think that the heart empties blood the way a balloon evacuates air. It's absolutely wrong. The way the heart empties blood is the way you would wring water from a towel. You twist the blood out with your heart.
As the heart twists the blood out, it must ensure that the blood always flows in the right direction. This is the job of the valves, sophisticated doorways that open and close as they propel the blood from chamber to chamber. The sound made by the valves as they open and shut is what we call the heartbeat, the constant soundtrack to every minute of our lives. For thousands of years, the source of the heart's involuntary, ceaseless contractions was one of the great mysteries of mankind. It's only in the past century that scientists have understood the unique electrical system that powers the heart.
The nature of the heart muscle is very different from other muscles of the body. Heart cells are powered by a mind of their own, the pacemaker cell. And so even when we do heart transplants and literally cut the heart out of the body, it keeps beating.
4 million times in the average lifetime, an electrical pulse travels like a wave between 2 clusters of nerve cells in the heart, one that generates the pulse and another that relays it to the ventricles, governing their rhythmic contractions electrically.
So imagine squeezing this tennis ball 72 times a minute, every minute of every hour of every day for the rest of your life. My hand's getting tired just doing it 10 times. That's what the heart does repetitively for your entire life.
But the heart is just the central player in an intricate network of arteries and veins so vast that laid end to end, the blood vessels of just one human body would stretch 60,000 miles. Where the heart is an engine designed to soldier on through our lives, the vessels are the delicate fuel lines, making subtle, moment-to-moment adjustments to external conditions. Feel like going for a swim in the middle of winter? Your arteries know to constrict, shuttling blood away from the cold skin to the vital organs that keep us warm and functioning. Want to go to space? Your arteries understand they no longer need to compensate for gravity to prevent blood from pooling in your legs. How do your arteries make these incredible adaptations? Through their ability to expand and constrict.
If you didn't know better, you would think the vascular system was an intelligent, self-aware process. And you know what? It really is. There are all kinds of chemical feedback mechanisms that allow the arteries to make decisions on their own.
And the more we train them, the more efficient our arteries become. As important as strength and agility are for an athlete, like champion kickboxer Emily Bearden, it's her finely tuned vascular system that keeps her in the ring for 5 grueling rounds of battle. If she's going to win, it's because she's conditioned her arteries so that long past the point when fatigue would sink most of us, they're still delivering plenty of nourishing oxygen to her muscles. This job ultimately falls to the capillaries, the billions of minuscule vessels interlaced through our living tissue. These are arteries so small that blood cells can only pass through them in single file. But it is through their permeable walls that every muscle and every organ in our body receives the oxygen that they need. But the same sensitivity that makes our vascular system so intelligent is also what makes it so vulnerable. Because every one of our organs is fed by the blood vessels. What we often call heart disease is actually a disease that affects every inch of our bodies.
Literally any artery that is pumping blood is suspect for blockages. It's kind of like you get a clogged fuel line and the carburetor and the engine aren't going to work. Well, that's exactly what a blockage does. A blockage doesn't allow the motor to work properly.
If these blockages occur in the arteries that supply the heart or the brain, the results are all too familiar catastrophes: heart attack or stroke. But even much subtler disturbances can have disastrous consequences. A seemingly minor increase in blood pressure can start a chain of events that ends in organ failure. Vascular walls become damaged, causing a restriction in blood flow. And when the organs don't receive adequate blood flow, they can't function properly. And no people in the world suffer from this damage more than Americans.
It's a spectacular difference we see across the globe when we compare cultures and their incidence of heart disease. In many societies, you can't find heart disease, whereas half of all Americans die of heart disease.
In this program, we'll take you on a tour to find out why so many of America's hearts are in such bad shape and what can be done to change it. It's a tour that will take us inside the body, using state-of-the-art imaging technology to show the cardiovascular system as it's never been seen before. But it's also a tour around the country, from the hills of West Virginia to the plains of West Texas, from the big city to the bayou, to the ball fields of Baltimore, and beyond. The people we'll meet along the way have very little in common, but they're united by the priceless lessons they can teach us about our cardiovascular health. These are their stories, stories from the heart. As infants, our blood vessels are smooth, pliant, muscular, unspoiled. But even with a healthy lifestyle, lifetime abuse, stiffens, constricts, and erodes them, putting every organ in our bodies at risk. And so it's vital that we start taking care of our bodies at an early age. Little we can do is more important than exercise. The bad news is, it takes a lot to get today's kids moving.
When kids come home from school, they're pretty tired. And I think a lot of it's the tiredness due to inactivity.
But there's one thing that most kids today will do for hours on end. Last year, the average American kid spent 1,500 hours sitting motionless in front of a screen.
The games on the computer, the games on the PlayStation,
A little Pokemon on the
TV.
handheld controls.
There are lots of screens.
At West Virginia University, 2 professors started to wonder whether there was a way to use this obsession to kids' advantage.
We became very concerned about the alarming rise in childhood obesity in West Virginia.
For the 24% of America's youth who qualify as obese, the extra weight is just the beginning of the problem. The effects on their cardiovascular system are what put these kids in the danger zone. While a healthy artery dilates to increase blood flow and accommodate the exercising body's need for more oxygen, the arteries of an obese individual are unable to dilate sufficiently. This forces the heart to work harder and tire more easily. Compounded with the hypertension and high cholesterol common in overweight children, this is a recipe for ruin.
The scary thing is that with these kids, if they continue to have these risk factors throughout the rest of their life, will eventually develop heart disease at probably a very early age.
12 weeks before we filmed them, Jacob, Catherine, and Stuart were in the 85th percentile for body mass index, a ratio of height to weight that is the standard measure of ideal weight range.
We were always concerned about Jacob, and he always carried a little extra weight, and we were worried about that.
Catherine is an awful lot like me in that her hobbies and interests are sedentary. She likes to read, she likes to draw and play music, and doesn't get an abundance of physical activity, certainly not an adequate amount of physical activity.
These were kids who needed an incentive to get them to exercise. Then one day, Linda had an epiphany.
I was in a mall and observing children, and they were having a great time, and they were playing a video game and exercising at the same time.
The game was Dance Dance Revolution, or DDR, a video game that replaces the joystick with a dance pad and gets kids up and moving.
It was cool to find out that there was a video game in the world that parents would like and actually let you play.
Having laid out $70 million in obesity-related claims in 2004 alone, the State Insurance Fund was already in the midst of an awareness campaign and eager to fund a study geared at keeping kids heart healthy.
What we're hoping is that this mode of exercise will show an improvement in endothelial function.
The role of the endothelium, the artery's innermost layer, is critical to healthy blood flow. Its decline is one of the earliest signs of blood vessel constriction. But for these kids, it wasn't long before DDR addiction took over, and suddenly they were exercising every day.
The second I got home, I hooked it up and started playing. I thought it was fun right away.
One nice thing about the DDR, you don't really have to crack the whip. You know, they just go right to it.
Yeah.
I've got this really cool move. I thought it was funny. And then all my friends are like, whoa, how do you do that? I was like, I don't know.
And initial results show that all this fun and games was indeed reversing risk factors for heart disease.
Initially, he had a 3.7% increase from when he was from baseline to after the flow increase. And this time it was 9%, so that was almost a 6% increase from 12 weeks ago. His blood pressure also improved.
Your heart doesn't have to work as hard as what it was 12 weeks ago.
It's a really amazing improvement in 12 weeks.
In Stuart's case, this improvement could be seen just by looking at him, before and after. And all the kids in the study underwent the kind of changes that can't be measured in a lab.
Mark coached him in basketball, and he would have to sit out part of the game because he didn't have the stamina.
He was asked to come out. He was too tired. But towards the end of the basketball season, you know, he was playing the entire game and never coming out, and he didn't need to.
I didn't change any of my eating habits and not anything, and I lost 10 pounds. So my grandma keeps telling me, "Wow, Catherine, you're beautiful. You look much skinnier." I was like, "Thank you." Yeah.
Last year I ran a mile in, what was it, 9 minutes and 15 seconds for the physical fitness challenge. This year was 6 minutes and 44 seconds.
He improved his time immensely, and you could see pride, all, you know, his big smile, and it was impressive. I was very impressed by it.
And there was one more unexpected result.
You really get a good workout. I can attest to that. I've done it many times. It's fun.
She's very good. She can keep up with me. Sometimes.
I don't have the stamina that she has or the speed, but I like to think I have style.
The journey to a heart-healthy lifestyle starts early, and thanks to a video game, Catherine, Stuart, and Jacob are starting that journey on the right foot. With today's advanced scanning technology, we can see exactly how our cardiovascular system is faring.
A CT scan is basically a form of X-ray. It constructs multiple slices. As you go up and down the body, you are obtaining a very detailed image of each cross-section.
These images are not an artist's rendering of a heart and arteries. They're the real thing. Stacking thousands of cross-section scans of a torso, technicians can now build a three-dimensional, volume-accurate image of your heart, lungs, and arteries. But with all of this technology, a simple blood pressure test can often give us the most vital information about our cardiovascular health. Hypertension, or high blood pressure, is a condition so subtle and so devastating that it has earned the name the silent killer. What's most sinister about high blood pressure is we rarely know it's happening. It compromises our health, but doesn't make us feel worse day to day.
Of all the things that age us, high blood pressure is the most important. Now that's stunning to most people, because who would think a little bit of extra blood pressure in your arteries would make a difference?
Healthy arteries expand and constrict with the pulse of the blood being pumped out by the heart, but the hypertensive vessel thickens, losing its pliancy and forcing the blood to tumble through at a pressure the walls are not meant to accommodate. The increased pressure on the arteries damages the delicate inner lining of their walls. Ultimately, this damage extends to every cell in our body, and the consequences are often fatal. Though the tragic aftermath of Hurricane Katrina has now taken center stage, Louisiana has also long been ground zero for heart disease.
South Louisiana is known for its food. Absolutely the best food in the world. Fried shrimp, fried oysters, fried oyster po' boys. They're delicious, they're wonderful. Unfortunately, it's probably the least heart-healthy food in the world for you also.
No country in the world has heart health problems like America. And in America, no region has problems like the South. In Houma, Louisiana, Dr. Peter Fail is on the front lines of the heart disease epidemic.
Prevention is always the best. Unfortunately, you know, one of the problems we have with prevention is that it's a lot of people don't come to see the doctor until something's happening, something has changed. Now, they told me you've been having some chest pain.
Yes, sir. A little bit of back pain.
Right at the shoulders. Just when you're walking.
Just when I'm walking.
The heart, it'll accept a lot of abuse for a long period of time, up until a point, and then it's gonna revolt, and then it's gonna pay you back badly.
But for one of these patients, the tests that Dr. Fail performs will reveal that payback time is too close for comfort.
Last night, a little too much salt or a little too much alcohol?
Well, I did have some salt. I ate some salty gumbo at lunch.
Salty gumbo. Miss Janie, I tell you, one of the issues, and we've talked about this in the past, is your weight, sweetie.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta
I just started.
Good. We gotta get that weight down. Lose a little bit of that. If you want to see exactly how bad obesity is, go into the waiting room and try to find an 80-year-old obese patient. You tend not to see them. Obese patients do not live very long.
We all know that fatty foods are bad for our heart, but how many of us know why? It's a story that begins in the liver, where our bodies make two kinds of cholesterol, HDL, or good cholesterol, and LDL, the bad. LDL does its damage by sticking to the inner walls of the arteries, while HDL can even clear out existing blockages. But when too much LDL builds up, it accumulates as plaques that stiffen and constrict the arteries. The larger these plaques become, the greater the risk that they will rupture, break off, or simply cut off blood flow, leading to aneurysm, heart attack, or stroke.
You been smoking? You don't smoke. You smoke?
Yeah, I smoke.
More than 47 million Americans are smokers, and they're all damaging their arteries with every puff. Along with bad diet, lack of exercise, and family history, smoking is one of the key factors that contributes to hypertension by constricting the arteries and weakening their crucial inner linings. Once hypertension has begun to decimate the arteries' inner linings, they become all the more vulnerable to plaque buildup. Plaque further stiffens the vessels, which in turn further increases blood pressure. This is how hypertension and cholesterol join forces in a vicious cycle that spells disaster for our overall health.
It all starts with blood pressure. It all starts with cholesterol. And if we can curb those, then we may prevent a lot of bad things from happening further on down the road.
And have a little bit of high blood pressure.
Have a history of hypertension, high blood pressure?
Yes.
Are you on blood pressure medication?
A healthy adult blood pressure is 120/80 or below. Even a slightly elevated reading can have drastic repercussions. Doctors can manage this with hypertension medications and keep the cholesterol in check with statin medications.
184/92. I'm going to give you a project, okay? You want to always know what your good and your bad cholesterol are.
Okay.
Okay, not just the total, but the good and the bad.
Okay.
For you want your good cholesterol to be above 50, bad cholesterol less than 100. After the cholesterol and after the blood pressure have been out of control for a period of time, then you're dealing with a heart attack, you're dealing with a stroke, you're dealing with kidney failure.
To see how close to the danger zone a patient is treading, Vail gives them a stress test.
Take her down, take her down, take her down. Take her down, take her down, take her down. Okay.
Walk it down.
Okay, walk it down. There you go. There you go. That's it.
An ultrasound and perfusion scans provide an initial picture of the heart. And bingo, Dr. Vail sees something he doesn't like.
I think she does have something going on here. Well, we have got your studies back, and as we predicted, you were going to have some blockages in your heart. You actually have a very severe blockage on the top part of your heart. He gave you what's called a sum stress score of 18, which is pretty dramatic. What bothers me a little bit is the suddenness of it, and that means something has changed over the recent couple of weeks here. We should be able to get away with a simple angioplasty or a stent. I think we're going to plan on doing that sometime tomorrow morning.
We were going to Mississippi tomorrow. Okay.
First thing the next morning, Isabel's sedated and ready for the procedure.
What we're now doing is we're passing up a wire with a specialized catheter called a pigtail, and what this is going to do is this is going to actually sit inside the left ventricle, the beating chamber of her heart.
As a specialized dye circulates through Isabel's coronary arteries, Dr. Vail has the clearest view yet of her blockages.
Yeah, that's what we suspected. This is the artery, and you can see literally it just stops right here.
His suspicions confirmed, Dr. Vail proceeds with an angioplasty, guiding a catheter up through Isabel's femoral artery and through her aorta, delivering a wire mesh stent to the site of her blockage.
And what happens, the stent will then allow that artery or prevent that artery from squeezing back on itself. And now you can see how much more blood flow is going through that artery now. We're all finished, sweetie.
And 45 minutes after it began, the procedure is over. In just a few days, Isabel will be up and about again. Isabel Cargo was very lucky. But there are times when minimally invasive procedures like angioplasty won't do the trick. That's when the heart surgeons step in. Among them, few are as in demand as Dr. Mehmet Oz.
The successful surgery is all about focus. Really, everything is so well choreographed that you barely have to talk.
He's written numerous bestsellers about heart health and has operated on presidents, star athletes, and captains of industry. But for all the success he's had with Western medicine, Dr. Oz sees it as only one of many paths to health.
We get comfortable living within a very narrow realm of reality and healing. But if you look at other cultures and how they heal, we should be taking their best ideas and incorporating them as well.
Acupuncture, yoga, massage, meditation, healing touch. Whether for prevention or therapy, today's most forward-looking physicians are open to these techniques as an essential part of the healing process.
Integrative medicine really is the globalization of what I do. It's taking the best healing practices from all over the world and bringing them to the same place.
And for Dr. Oz, these are more than empty words. He relies on his daily yoga to keep him focused, grounded, and energetic throughout his hectic schedule.
Yoga allows you to meditate to what your body's doing, while at the same time focusing on the deep breath that brings so much of that rich, nutritious oxygen into your body. At the same time, helps you relax. We have a whole gamut of therapies that we customize for people if they want them. Whatever it took, but it made them feel whole again, because that's what this is all about. It's about feeling at one with the environment around you and with your own body. And surgery alone can't do that.
Dr. Oz takes this approach to every patient he treats, including New Yorker Stephen Hanford.
I'm a local 638 steam fitter. I work down the city doing construction, putting heating, air conditioning, refrigeration, sprinkler systems. That's what a steam fitter does.
I kept it secret for a good while.
Why is that?
I didn't want to get upset.
Were you upset when you found out?
Yeah, I was on the highway driving. You have to tell me now.
What upset Ginger were the acute chest pains Stephen had been having on his walk back from work. Angiography soon revealed they were angina, the most common sign of imminent heart attack.
You got to the wake-up call. I mean, you didn't have a massive heart attack. You didn't die. That's a little bit luck, frankly.
The heart needs only 4% of the blood it produces for its own functioning. But if it fails to get it, disaster ensues. Making this vital delivery is a task that falls to the coronaries, a set of arteries that run like vines along the surface of the heart itself. In Stephen's case, all four are severely blocked.
My dad, he had a stroke when he was about 54. My mother, she had a heart attack when she was like 56. And my aunt, she has heart trouble. So it runs in the family.
But family history is hardly the only factor in Stephen's heart disease.
My favorite meal is chicken cutlets breaded. I think I fried it in the pan with some saucy Susan on top of the chicken. So then I like Franks and beans, macaroni and cheese, and lots of grated cheese on top of it.
We smoke an average of over 4 packs a day, between the two of us.
I'm not going to operate on you if you're still smoking. I can't. I'd be doing the wrong thing. Your chance of pneumonia goes up, your chance of dying goes up from that. And frankly, if you're not listening to your own body before I do the surgery, I'm not sure you'll listen to your own body after I do the surgery. So my one chance to get you to stop smoking is now. Can you do it?
Yeah, I think I can do it. Yeah. I ain't happy about it, but I'll do it.
You don't smoke too, do you?
Yes.
Well, you're his you're his crutch. If you're smoking, he'll never stop.
We're in it together.
We've been through a lot. We met in an alcohol rehab. We both quit drinking 23 years ago. We're both alcoholics, so we overcame that. We'll overcome this.
Anybody can quit anything, but the hardest part is staying there. That to me, that's the success. When you can say, nope, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward.
I'm not. I'll be honest, I'm not looking forward to it at all.
But Dr. Oz's words have sunk in.
Spent like 45 minutes, I think, almost an hour, just talking to us. And we were more like hanging out. It wasn't, you know, doctor-patient. It was like friends. And he makes you feel, do as I say, and you'll be fine.
A month before his operation, Stephen and Ginger celebrate smoking their last cigarette.
I might have to smoke 2 cigarettes after this thing. Wow.
We can do it.
Yeah.
Piece of cake.
We've quit a lot of other things. It's just one more.
Yep.
And at last, the time has come. In order to repair Stephen's heart, Dr. Oz and his team will first harvest veins from his legs. Next, they open his chest.
See the lungs here? The dark areas are from cigarettes.
Then, for the procedure itself, they must stop Stephen's heart.
You see how it's blue here? The blue is normal. The white stuff is plaque. It's all blocked in here. You feel that it's like a rock. Here are the 2 veins.
Using the veins from his legs, they'll literally bypass the blocked sections of his coronary arteries.
He stopped smoking 37 days ago. I told him I wanted a month without cigarettes. He gave me a week just to make sure. So far, he's doing wonderfully. These are good distal vessels. These veins will carry a lot of blood to this heart. It looks good. Look at that. Take that out.
As his team closes Stephen's chest over his newly mended heart, Dr. Oz reports back to Ginger.
You did very, very well. I'm really happy. Congratulations.
Thank you.
4 days later, Stephen's on the road to recovery, but the hard work of lifestyle change is far from over, a fact that Dr. Oz isn't going to let him ignore.
You know, the operations that we do, they're very effective at saving people's lives, short term. But this won't buy you 50 years. It'll buy you 5 if you don't take care of it. And I'm particularly concerned about cigarettes.
No, the smoking's finished. And, yeah, I'm gonna eat better and get a little more exercise. You know, just live better. Anybody can do it. Yeah, you gotta want to change.
A lot of people think they want to change, but they really haven't gotten it down deep where it matters. And we all understand it here. It's understanding it here.
That's it. Sorry, Dr. Oz.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. Bye.
Through the intervention of skilled physicians like Peter Fail and Mehmet Oz, Isabel and Stephen have managed to avert the heart attacks that were likely in store for them. Many others are not so lucky. Left unchecked, the blockages that Isabel and Stephen had repaired could eventually clog to the point where no blood can get through, or they can rupture and release a clot into the bloodstream. The result usually leads to what doctors call a myocardial infarction. The rest of us call it a heart attack. But too many of us think of the heart as the only organ that sustains damage from cardiovascular disease. Your eyes, your kidneys, your brain, all of these organs are susceptible to the ravages of cardiovascular disease.
With hypertension, just think about it like blood rushing out of a fire hydrant. That kind of pressure hitting something hurts. It's damaging. It can cause different kinds of damages to whatever organ it hits.
Seen in the eye, the downward spiral of hypertension is visible as a progressive constriction of the vessels, worsening and worsening until the damage reaches a breaking point. While this damage can be seen just by looking in someone's eyes, hypertensive damage to the kidneys shows its grim face in the daily misery of patients on dialysis.
What happens during dialysis is that all the blood in your body is being filtered by a machine. So what usually your kidney's able to do now has to be done by a machine, and it just leaves you feeling drained.
The job of the kidneys is to filter out all the toxins in our bodies, a task it carries out through the dense network of capillaries threaded through it. And because no organ in our bodies is more packed with blood vessels than the kidneys, no organ is as extraordinarily vulnerable to the ravages of vascular disease.
The number one cause of kidney failure in this country is high blood pressure. Because the major effect of high blood pressure is to damage vessels, you can imagine how much damage can go on in that one little area.
This damage has devastating results, but the effects on the kidney pale in comparison to the harm that cardiovascular disease can inflict on the brain.
A person has a stroke and can be absolutely devastating. The first leading cause of disability and the third leading cause of death.
To right field, this one is way back. Williams chasing, and it is a Ellie Hendricks grand slam home run.
Elrod Hendricks is a legend in Baltimore. He spent 38 years in the major leagues. For all but 4 of those years, Elrod was a Baltimore Oriole. As a player on 2 World Series teams, and as the bullpen coach since 1977. But in December of 2005, Elrod Hendricks passed away from a heart attack, and Baltimore lost one of its favorite sons. Before his death, we had the privilege of spending some time with the beloved Oriole.
There you go, buddy.
You retired? Did you keep your gloves?
I have to. He's like the uncle of everyone here, you know.
8 months before his passing, during spring training of the '05 season, Elrod had his first close call.
I remember just looking at the pitching chart and staring at it, and I was trying to put in the numbers that I needed to put in the innings, and I just stared at it, and then I realized I was in really serious trouble because I heard everything around me. I understood everything everyone was saying. I just could not speak back to those guys.
Elrod was experiencing the first signs of a stroke. A piece of plaque had broken off an artery and flowed up into one of the arteries that feeds the brain. Strokes can be thought of as brain attacks because just as heart tissue is starved by a heart attack, it is brain tissue that starts to die in a stroke. At this point, a stroke victim usually has a 30-minute window before severe brain damage takes place. The team's trainer was nearby and noticed something was wrong.
He was slurring his words, just wasn't clearly speaking, and I noticed he was not able to move his right arm very well. And so those were, you know, just from my knowledge base of that, were signs that, you know, we need to get to the hospital and get this looked at and taken care of.
Elrod was admitted to the local hospital and administered a clot-busting medication. Elrod's recovery was uncommonly smooth. As he rested up and prepared for his return, the worst part was being kept away from the game he loved.
The very first time that I heard an Oriole game broadcast was when I got home from the hospital, and it was no fun. I felt very uncomfortable. I mean, listening to it, and I said, boy, if this is what retirement is, I don't want to do this.
When he did return, Elrod discovered that the city of Baltimore had missed him as much as he had missed suiting up.
The day that I walk on that field, after getting back, the ovation that I got walking out to the bullpen and people gathered around the bullpen, you know, all well-wishers, and, you know, it was a good feeling, humbling, but good feeling nonetheless.
Today, more and more patients are surviving strokes and heart attacks.
Although we have 1.2 million heart attacks a year, we have less and less people dying from heart attacks. But guess what happens? If you have a heart attack and you don't die, you still have damage to the muscle, which means we're getting a lot more folks who are suffering from heart failure, a weakening of the heart, an enlarging of the heart, which requires a whole different set of interventions.
There's a place that we call Texas, known as the Lone Star State, the home of Western Swing.
To learn about heart failure, our tour next takes us to Big Spring, Texas, where everyone knows Jody Nix. And everyone knows the Stampede, where the Nix family has been playing Western Swing for more than 50 years.
First time I saw Jody, he was about 10 years old.
We followed the band forever.
50-something years.
Now the whole town comes here. It's fun. It's like a family thing. It's fun.
No place like it.
But tonight's show is a rarity. Tonight, Jody won't be playing his signature fiddle.
This is a fiddle that belonged to the great Bob Wills. My daddy and I bought it from him in June of 1965. When he passed away, it went to me. So a lot of history on this old fiddle. Well, it sounds great. Wish I could play it for you.
A month before we filmed him, Jody woke up with the telltale signs of full-blown congestive heart failure.
Well, I'm going to show you here the size of Jody's heart, which as you can see is enlarged as compared to what it should be a normal sized heart.
What probably began as a viral infection had damaged Jody's heart muscle, just as a heart attack would. Attempting to compensate for its decreased pumping function, the damaged heart remodels itself over time, expanding like a balloon. And the larger it gets, the more inefficient it becomes. This inefficiency has disastrous repercussions. Unable to pump out enough of the blood it receives from the lungs, pressure increases within the heart and the system starts to back up. Fluid pools in the lungs, the heart itself, and throughout the body. Jody's Big Spring doctors wasted no time speeding him the 100 miles up to Lubbock Heart Hospital for defibrillator implant surgery.
Well, the danger is not the enlarged heart itself. The danger has to do with the fact that people that have pump functions that are below 35% have a higher mortality in sense of dying suddenly from an arrhythmia.
When the heart is weakened, its electrical system is prone to developing abnormal impulses that can lead to sudden cardiac arrest. Jody's newly implanted defibrillator guards against this risk by shocking his weakened heart back into rhythm at the slightest rhythmic disruption.
Count me out of future plans you might be making. No more foolish chances am I taking. You played love game too rough. Plans for me I've had enough. 'Cause the going's got too rough.
But as the delicate wiring of his implant would need time to heal, there was one serious catch.
The reason I don't want Jody to fiddle for a month is because if you watch here, this little lead has a screw on it. That screw is embedded on the heart. So any pull on that screw can take it out of the muscle of the heart.
Here's a picture of me holding Daddy's fiddle bow at the Stampede opening night, May the 8th, 1954.
Holding it with your left hand.
Holding it with my left hand, which I have not been able to do for the last month. But we're going to get past that.
It's been the first month in decades that West Texas has had to go without a Nix playing fiddle. Back in Lubbock, Jody's hoping that's about to change.
We've made it already to 4 weeks, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So, are you interested in fiddling again?
I'd love to play the fiddle again.
Okay, that would be cool.
As you can see, for the first time in 5 weeks, I'm holding my fiddle again.
To me, Western swing music is dance music. Some are sad, some are happy. But even with the sad lyrics like Faded Love, it had a driving, hard dance beat to it that made people want to get out and dance. With every heartbeat, I still think of you and remember our faded love. Now that's good. With every heartbeat, every good heartbeat again.
With the help of medication and this implantable defibrillator, Jody Nix has truly benefited from modern medicine. Today, heart surgeons are performing procedures that were once unimaginable and giving our next generation of heart disease patients a fighting chance at life. In this Philadelphia OR, surgeons are attempting to repair a failing heart, but this patient doesn't fit the classic profile of someone suffering from heart disease. As far as 3-year-olds go, Erin Doherty is pretty normal. Her heart is anything but.
Erin was born with a very complex form of congenital heart disease. Whatever the signals are which determine what should be on your right side and what should be on your left side is what goes haywire when you have what Erin has.
Without surgery, Erin will not survive. Doctors at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia
are performing the third and hopefully final surgery to redesign Erin's heart. Sophisticated magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, provides doctors with 3D pictures of her heart and its condition.
This type of structural heart disease is extremely rare. It's called heterotaxy syndrome.
This is Erin's actual heart, rendered through high-tech visualization techniques. She was born with an extra vein above her heart that drained blue blood, or deoxygenated blood, into the wrong chamber, combining it with red blood, or oxygenated blood. And that's not the only problem. Underneath, the large vein carrying blue blood to her heart was malformed. Also, her right pumping chamber is severely underdeveloped.
When you have a mixing of the blue and the red blood, you have a low amount of oxygen being delivered to your brain and other important organs. The goal behind the stages of the surgery here is to separate the blue blood from the red blood so a child's oxygen level will be normal.
Not long after Erin's first birthday, these doctors rerouted the veins above Erin's heart. Now they'll try to fix the lower veins and finish the job. Doctors knew about Erin's condition before she was even born.
We were not sure that we were going to be bringing a baby home with us in the beginning. And, you know, most people would go out and they would have their baby room all ready to go and all the clothes and all the stuff. And we didn't buy anything. We did nothing. We didn't want to jinx it.
We had a hard time with that in the beginning. It gets easier now. We just learn, you know, that every day's a blessing and take it to the fullest. And however long we have her, we're blessed to even have her.
Because of her age and the complexity of her defect, Erin's heart needed to be reconstructed in stages.
When she was 1 year old, just a few days after her second operation, and the backpack is holding her monitoring equipment.
She's got the scar on her chest, and she thinks that was a kitty scratch. So then her mother said that that was from her previous operation. She said, no, that's from the kitty scratch.
Now it's time for Erin to undergo her third and hopefully final operation. Dr. Tom Spray, one of the world's most experienced pediatric surgeons, will attempt to reroute the delicate vessels around her heart.
This is a risky surgery. The technical parts of these operations are really dramatic. The surgery needs to be done through an incision right through the breastbone, and this, of course, is the third time back in, so just identifying anatomy and the potential for bleeding and those types of things is much more difficult than the first operation. The heart that he's operating on is the size of probably a plum. The technical aspects of putting in these sutures requires that he operates basically through magnifying glasses.
They're going to stop her heart and work on it. I mean, she's essentially not going to be alive during that period, so they got to fire the heart back up and wake her back up again and make sure everything is still normal. And that's, you know, it's hard to think about that with your little girl.
Creating a working circulatory system for Erin will depend on some sophisticated jerry-rigging.
He would be inserting a conduit in that's probably a little bit bigger than the diameter of my pinky. And that conduit is going to be placed from a vein in the lower part of her chest, really just where the chest joins the abdomen, up into her lungs at a distance of about 4 or 5 inches. We've only been able to deal with these types of structural heart problems effectively for the last generation or so. The oldest children who have benefited from the medical advances are really children born in the early to mid-'80s. So there's nobody now really in their late 20s or 30s with whom we can say this is what we expect for Erin.
I'm hoping that she'll live a normal childhood and, you know, she'll grow old. That's what I hope.
Erin's heart has been stopped for over an hour, but Dr. Spray has virtually completed the task. Now, it's time to restart her heart.
In the last 20 years, I've gone from a person who had to give bad news a lot of the time to giving good news the great majority of the time. We have had patients now that have had this type of structural heart problem going on to have their own children. So we anticipate a full and a good life, a good quality of life.
3 months later, Erin is already on her way to living a normal life. Today, people with cardiovascular disease are getting second chances that not long ago would have been considered miraculous. But the future has even more miraculous treatments in store. These doctors at the University of Rochester are installing an implant that regulates blood pressure instead of rhythm. The first of its kind, it's a potential lifesaver for patients whose hypertension is so high that medication and lifestyle changes can't solve the problem. And surgery itself is changing.
Interventions like robotics have changed the world for us. This incredible device has 3 arms that fit into the chest and plays a video game inside the patient's chest. Amazing. We're doing open heart surgery with a closed chest.
In Thailand, at the Bangkok Hospital, doctors are taking an entirely different approach to surgery, using stem cells to help the heart regrow its own tissue. But for all these incredible scientific developments, tomorrow's therapies can only be as good as the doctors putting them to use.
A simulator is basically a virtual patient or a device that replicates a patient. His eyes dilate and constrict to light. There are about 100 different physiologic parameters that can be manipulated and superimposed on top of normal, healthy patients. And so the entire gambit of cardiovascular disease can be replicated. Using a simulator, we can allow our students to make errors, learn from those errors, play the scenario back, and see if they actually did achieve the learning process.
Time of death, 11:27.
In the end, though, no matter how well we train tomorrow's doctors, no matter how far the science of heart health advances, our cardiovascular fate ultimately rests in our own hands.
A diet that is rich in the healthy fats that we need to have to maintain our lubrication and our health, that are rich with colorful foods that are natural in their essence. If you can combine that with an active lifestyle, you've got a recipe for longevity, happiness, and health.
Although our family history determines our initial vulnerability to heart disease, what we do from there is up to each of us. We can avoid the behavior that encourages hypertension and atherosclerosis, and for most of us, that will put us on the path to heart-healthy lives, even if we need a helping hand from modern medicine. Because further down the road, the repercussions of how we've treated our cardiovascular systems are impossible to ignore.
It's going to cause a heart attack. It's going to cause heart failure. It's going to cause valvular disease. You name it, it's going to cause it. And it's all because we abused our heart for a long period of time.
Whether we're lucky enough to catch the problem in the early stages, or much, much closer to the edge, we must live with the cardiovascular system we've made for ourselves.
The ultimate solution to most of our ailments is to put people like me out of business, to do the preventive care that allows us to live not just longer, but with a better quality of life.
Our cardiovascular system is truly one of nature's masterpieces, a structure of such complexity and beauty that the most gifted designer, artist, or engineer could work a lifetime and never come close to a structure of its elegance and efficiency. There is nothing we do, no active body, mind, or soul, that can take place without the precise functioning of our heart and its seemingly endless network of blood vessels. And though its delicate calibrations make it sensitive to the slightest mistreatment, if we are reliable caretakers, our hearts will reward us by keeping the beat for every moment